And next item is item G, legislation. For that, we turn to our Legislative Committee Chair, Michael Mark.
All right, thank you, Chair Love. So we will begin the legislative agenda with agenda item E1A. So within the board packet, there's been some updates, and there is some new handouts now. So members of the audience, there are some new handouts. I believe it's on the back table. So E1A, review, discussion, and possible action on 2023 pending legislation. An analysis of agenda item E1A, Assembly Bill 143 by the Committee on Budget begins on page 69 of your handout. And that's the new handout in front of us. This bill was going to be presented for the board to consider taking a position, but the bill was signed by the governor last night. That's what Register of Quote was just talking about. This bill adds a section to the General Business and Professions Code to create a registry of contractors who are licensed by other states who are active members of the military and stationed in California. As well, this bill also amends the Bagley-Keene Open Meetings Act and amends the Labor Code to facilitate the apprenticeships for women in construction, as well as the portion on remote meetings. I'm going to hand it off to Fauna.
This is my last section, I promise. So I was originally going to present AB 143 for the board to consider taking a position, but like Legislative Chair Mark said, this bill was signed by the governor, so now the presentation is informational only. So this is a budget trailer bill. That means that there is an accompanying bill in the Senate Bill SB 143. That's the legislation that was actually signed. And because it's a budget trailer bill, it goes into effect immediately upon signing. So this bill extends the ability to have remote meetings until December 31st, 2023, and that's what Dave just spoke about. It also allows for portability of a contractor's license in another state for active members of the military who are stationed in California. This would just create a registry of those who are licensed in other states, and we would recognize them as a licensee for the purposes of while they're stationed in California. And the third thing this would do is to allow apprenticeship programs to benefit from the Women in Construction Priority Unit of the Department of Industrial Relations. They have a grant program, and so this amendment to allow apprenticeship programs to participate in the priority units resources it's a technical change. So these are the primary things this bill would do that impact us. And that was just an update. This bill is signed and is effective immediately.
Thank you, Fauna. And I would like to just add that better known as ERICA grant from the Division of Apprenticeship Standards has been a great tool to bring women into the trades, change the culture, which I know this entire board believes in, and making sure that we're trying to get more women into the trades. We've got to change the culture. Is there any board comments on this particular bill? Seeing none, is there any public comments? Okay, we will move on. And so next, we're going to take the agenda out of order to discuss a bill that the staff is requesting the board reconsider before presenting the bills that only have a status update. The next bill we are going to discuss is E1E, which is SB 544 by Senator Laird for review, discussion, and possible action. This bill was significantly amended, and staff is recommending the board take action to affirm or revise its position. A revised analysis of SB 544 is in your handout beginning on page 71. At our last board meeting in June, at that time, this board took a support position. This bill would have indefinitely permitted remote meetings as long as certain requirements were met. This bill was amended to add a sunset date of January 1st, 2026. Additionally, SB 544 was amended to remove the concept of entirely remote meetings, which have been extended to just the end of this year. Fauna, can you please discuss these amendments?
Okay, the board took a support position on this bill when it was presented in June. At that time, it would have allowed remote meetings. It would have extended that indefinitely. This bill has been amended a couple times, and the final version is now, the status location has been updated since last night when we published this. It's now in the Senate on concurrence to vote on the amendments that the Assembly put into this bill. So those amendments are to not allow remote meetings. However, individual board members can participate remotely. In order to do that, there has to be a physical quorum at the posted location, and then the individual members beyond the quorum can participate remotely without posting their location or, So at least that is still protected. I wanted to bring this back to have the board either affirm your support position or to, if you want to change your position, give you that opportunity because this bill was so substantively amended. The motion that was approved in June was to continue support if the bill is amended as long as the concept of remote meetings is intact. That is no longer intact. So I'm submitting this for your consideration.
Thank you, Fauna. So the staff recommendation for this bill is now neutral. Is there any board member comment on this particular bill? Seeing no comment, any public comment? Seeing none. So is there a board member motion to change our recommendation to the staff recommendation of neutral on this particular bill?
Susan Grenzel, I'll make the motion.
Joel Barton, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to change our recommendation on this bill to neutral. Can we get a roll call?
Diana Love. Aye. Joel Barton.
Aye.
Rodney Kobos.
Aye.
David De La Torre.
Aye.
Miguel Galarza.
Aye.
Amanda Gallo.
Aye.
Susan Granzella.
Aye.
Alan Guy.
Aye.
Jacob Lopez, approved absence. Michael Mark.
Aye.
Steve Pinelli.
Aye.
Jim Ruane.
Aye.
Mary Tykert, approved absence. Motion passes.
Thank you. And so the remaining legislative agenda items are bills the board considered at its meeting on June 22nd, 2023. Because none of these bills were substantially amended, there is no action required. However, there has been a change in location of each bill since the meeting materials were published. Please refer to the revised update on page 73 and 74. Fauna, can you please present the status of each bill?
Hi, okay, so on page 73, you'll see it goes out order B, C, D, and then it skips E, which was 544. So the first bill, AB 336 by Assemblymember Cervantes, that bill would require us to post the top 3 workers' compensation classification codes by payroll on our website for each of our licensees. That bill, the location has been updated. It's now on, it was presented to the governor yesterday. So it has cleared the legislature and it is now with the governor. The next bill is AB 1204 by Assemblymember Holden. This bill would prohibit specialty contractors from subcontracting to 2 or more subcontractors, unless those contractors have employees or are party to a collective bargaining agreement. That bill was presented to the governor on September 12th. It has passed the legislature. The next one is SB 601 by Senator McGuire. That has cleared the Assembly and is now back in the Senate because the Assembly amended the bill. Those amendments would narrow, this bill originally proposed to extend the statute of limitations for aiding and abetting unlicensed contractors from 1 to 3 years, and the original language would have done that for all programs under DCA. The Assembly amended that to only apply to contractors. They also removed the elevated fines, and they instead, the bill would now instruct the courts to impose the maximum fine for housing and home improvement contracts when those violations are in declared disaster areas. So those amendments will be voted on by the Senate today. Today is the deadline for the legislature to pass all bills, and their hearing, their floor hearing starts at 1 o'clock. So this will change in a couple hours again. And the final bill, this is our board-sponsored bill. There were no changes here other than the status. Just here to announce that our board-sponsored bill was signed by the governor and will be effective on January 1st. This bill will allow us to require email addresses if available at the time of original licensure or renewal, so that we can communicate with our licensee base more effectively. And it also authorizes us to reimpose, the registrar, to reimpose revocation when a licensee has probationary conditions placed on their license in lieu of a revocation. So if they do not meet those terms of probation, that revocation would be effective without a second hearing. And that is it for legislation for this year.
Thank you, Fauna. That concludes the legislative agenda for today's meeting. It is back to Board Chair Love.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, we had 7 bills, AB 143, 336, 968, 1204, Senate Bill 544, 601, and 630. And they were just for background. And Fauna provided an update on those 5 bills. And I believe, Michael, do you have 2 more bills required for vote?
We took there was one bill that needed the vote. The first bill was already signed by the governor.
Okay.
That was the trailer budget bill. So there was no action needed. So it was just the one vote.
Just the one?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Committee Chair Mark. And we'll next to Agenda Item F, Enforcement. For that, I'll turn the floor over to our Enforcement Committee Chair, Jim Ruane.
Thank you, Chair Love. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jim Rowan, the Enforcement Committee Chair. The Enforcement Program Statistical Update begins on page 80 of your board packet. Your packet includes a thorough statistical update. However, I will request Enforcement Chief Steve Grove to provide a couple of highlights at this time. Steve?
Thank you, Chair Ruane. I have 2 highlights of recent investigations I would like to share this morning, beginning on page 80 of your packet. The first case involves a former licensed general contractor, David Forkosh, whose license was revoked in 2006, but he continued to contract without a license, resulting in 10 criminal complaints filed by the CSLB investigators. The CSLB investigations resulted in multiple charges, including contracting without a license, illegal advertising, fraudulent use of another's contractor's license, theft by false pretenses, failure to secure workers' compensation insurance, and conspiracy. In June of 2023, Forkosh appeared in court in San Mateo County for a preliminary hearing. The hearing was rescheduled and took place on August 28th, and we're pleased to announce that Forkosh was held to answer on all counts. The next case I would like to highlight involves solar contractor Zenernet Installation Company, LLC. Their contractor license was issued on December 20, 2021, and we received the first complaint against them the very next month. Over the next year and a half, the complaints continued coming in, reaching a total of 218. Allegations were that Zenernet was contracting for the installation of residential solar systems and leaving the projects in various stages of completion, ranging from no work done at all to completing the installation but not getting connection approval from the utility company. In one of the cases, the investigation established that Zenernet employed an unregistered salesperson to contract with a Fremont consumer to install a 17-panel solar system on his roof for over $48,000. Zenernet installed the equipment but failed to obtain the proper building permit or permission to operate from the local community or utility company. Therefore, the system was of no value to the consumer. Further, Zenernet received payment in full on the project from the consumer's finance company and then abandoned the project. Thanks to the quick work of our investigator and our case management staff, an accusation was filed, which resulted in the revocation of their contractor's license effective May 10, 2023. Although Zenernet ended up filing for bankruptcy protection, many of the victims received partial financial compensation through claims filed with the CSLB Solar Restitution Fund. More than $800,000 has been paid to the Zenernet victims out of the fund. In addition to the administrative case, a CSLB peace officer assigned to our Special Investigations Unit conducted an extensive criminal investigation involving 25 of the victims. The investigation has just recently been completed, and the case is in the process of being referred to the Criminal Division of the Attorney General's office. And that completes my highlights. Turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Continuing on with the statistical update, you will note at the top of page 80 some staffing information. Enforcement supervisors and managers continue to prioritize filling vacancies. Currently, there are 23 vacant positions, which is an approximate 10% vacancy rate. Interviews have been conducted and candidates selected for 6 of these vacant positions. On page 82, you will find complaint statistics. For the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30, 2023, a total of 17,574 reactive complaints have been received, which is a considerable increase over the past 2 fiscal years. In contrast, the total number of complaints received in 2021 was 14,527, and the total number received in fiscal year 21-22 was 15,472. With current staffing levels, the optimum maximum enforcement division caseload is 4,635 pending complaints. As of July 31st, 2023, the pending caseload was 5,021. The major contributor to this increased caseload continues to be residential solar installation complaints, and a small number of contractors that are receiving an excessive number of complaints. You may recall a few years ago, CSLB was concerned about receiving 80 solar complaints per month. Unfortunately, solar complaints have averaged about 200 per month for the past year. Consumer Services representatives, CSR, and special investigators, SI, in the Enforcement Division are working very hard to keep up with the incoming complaints. The weighted monthly caseload average per special investigator in investigative centers remains steady at 9 closures per month, just shy of the closure goal of 10. Consumer Service representatives assigned to the 2 CSLB intake mediation centers have exceeded complaint handling expectations by mediating or resolving more than 20 complaints monthly. From July 2022 through June 2023, enforcement efforts have resulted in more than $36.9 million in restitution to financially injured parties. Another board goal is to the appropriate disposition of all but 100 complaints within 270 days of receipt. As of July 31st, 2023, 281 complaints exceeded 270 days in age. Enforcement supervisors continue to work closely with their staff and provide guidance during monthly case reviews in an effort to reduce the backlog of aged cases, and I am pleased to provide an update that at the end of August, cases exceeding 270 days in age were reduced to 206. You'll find information on page 83 regarding CSLB-sponsored arbitration and disciplinary action statistics. Let us know if you have any questions about these. And finally, I will let us know if you have any questions about these. And finally, I will provide a brief update on proactive enforcement, which is conducted by the 27 special investigators assigned to the Statewide Investigative Fraud Team, or SWIFT. This information begins on page 84 of your board packet. From July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, SWIFT conducted 27 undercover sting operations across the state. They participated in 346 sweep days and responded to 967 leads or tips received from industry and the public. Investigators closed 3,164 cases as a result of the operations, with 885 cases resulting in an administrative or criminal legal action. Additionally, over 1,199 advisory notices were issued for relatively minor violations. That concludes the enforcement program statistical update. And on page 87, you will find a training update. You may recall that CSLB's 5-day enforcement academies stopped per the pandemic. I am pleased to report staff has resumed the 5-day enforcement academies, with 30 staff attending last July, and the next academy is scheduled for October. This is an information-only item. No action is required by the board. Board members have any comments?
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned that Zenernet, some of their customers received the restitution from the fund that we had. I'm assuming those complaints and the restitution was made prior to closing that fund.
Yes, where the fund is at right now is, for some background, we received a $5 million appropriation for solar consumers that had no recourse because their contractor had been revoked or was no longer viable. And so those consumers did receive $800,000 out of the fund. We were able to provide restitution to all Zenernet consumers that filed complaints prior to December 31st, 2022. We did cut the fund off at that time. We still have I should say, we're still looking at some of those claims, but I think most, if not all, the Zenernet consumers were made financially whole.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public in the room?
I have a comment,
Oh, sorry.
Chair Roon. I want to comment on the training that was taking place. I was able to attend a portion of it and presented to the 30 individuals. What was wonderful was the excitement in the room to get some training, because as everyone understands, we have a large backlog of cases, but trainings like this will help us make sure that the backlog decreases, and everyone was very excited for the training. So I also want to make sure Enforcement Supervisor Jerry Hassan, he provided that training with 2 legal representatives from DCA or DHE's office, and they did a wonderful job.
Thank you, Michael. Anything else from the board? Any comments from the public? All right, thank you. Our final agenda item is F2, which is an update on the Consumer Satisfaction Survey. The update begins on page 89 of your board packet and includes the full report for the 22-23 fiscal year. Unfortunately, there has been an 18% decline overall in the survey results. Enforcement management is very concerned about this decline and are currently looking at ways to improve future survey results. For background into likely causes of the satisfaction reduction, I'll now provide some of the contributing factors in the survey decline and action taken by staff. For the board to remain financially solvent in 2020, the Enforcement Division was forced to implement the following complaint handling expense reduction strategies. Less egregious licensee complaints were referred to small claims court when settlement efforts were not successful. Staff reduced use of the industry expert in arbitration programs, and filling of enforcement positions was delayed. As reported by Budget Manager Stacy Paul, CSLB financial concerns have been resolved and the aforementioned expense reduction strategies have ceased. Another contributing factor likely relates to telework. To keep staff safe during the COVID pandemic, telework and remote investigations were encouraged. This resulted in fewer site visits and formal legal actions. CSLB special investigators are now required to report to an office a minimum of 2 days per week and have returned to performing site inspections. Another factor that has impacted the Enforcement Division's ability to respond promptly to consumer complaints has been the unprecedented amount of disaster recovery and local assistance centers which have opened over the past 12 months to aid flood, earthquake, and wildfire victims. A total of 54, primarily enforcement staff, were redirected to these 47 assistance centers. CSLB management recognizes the importance of staffing these assistance centers, but at the same time, it unfortunately takes away from the division's ability to respond to consumer complaints. CSLB management has entered into negotiations to provide assistance remotely when appropriate, and hiring temporary help will be considered to provide on-call assistance for future disasters. And finally, as previously reported, enforcement activities have resumed, and all staff will be receiving customer service training in the coming months. I have also requested Steve Groves schedule an enforcement committee meeting for October or November of 2023 to further discuss opportunities to improve consumer satisfaction. This concludes the enforcement program update. Are there any comments from board members? Any comments from the public in the room? That concludes the enforcement items on the agenda. Back to you, Chair Love.
Thank you, Chair Ruane. Next item on the agenda is item G, licensing. For that, I'll turn the floor over to our licensing committee chair, Alan Guy.
There we go. Thank you, Chair Love. Good morning. I am Alan Guy, Licensing Committee Chair, and I am providing the Licensing Division update today with assistance from Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon. You can find the licensing update on page 108. I will highlight a few items for the board. Regarding applications, the table on page 108 indicates the number of applications received. As you can see, CSLB has already received over 27,000 applications in the first 7 months of the year. This is comparable to the amount we had received last year at this time. On page 109, you can see that except for home improvement salesmen, adding new officers, and name change forms, all of our processing times are now below 3 weeks. At our last board meeting, processing times for all applicant types was between 3 and 4 weeks. This improvement means more timely handling of our applications and results in reduced wait times for calls to the call center. Please note the total number of renewals received in the table on page 111. They went down between calendar year 2021 and 2022, but are on track to rebound by the end of 2023. We have already received more than 71,000 renewals in the last 7 months. If we continue to average slightly more than 10,000 renewals a month, we are on track to rebound to 2021 numbers. Regarding the workers' compensation stats on page 112, since March of 2023, the number of contractors with workers' compensation policies has increased by 3%. We think this is a benefit of SB 216, which the board sponsored. On page 116, you will note an update regarding CSLB's license application experience verification program. As of last summer, the licensing division referred most of the experience investigations to the enforcement division. This year, investigators have completed an average of 25 applicant investigations each month. You can find the testing update on page 120. CSLB finished transitioning to PSI exams on July 1st, 2022. Between August 2022 and July 2023, PSI exams administered 43,497 exams for CSLB candidates. In addition, CSLB expanded to two new test centers on August 1st, 2023 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Wilsonville, Oregon. Currently, there are no backlogs in test administration. As you can see on page 122, the Exam Development Unit has released 5 newly updated exams since April 1st, 2023. C17 glazing, C42 sanitation system, C46 solar, C53 swimming pool, and C54 ceramic and mosaic tile. Each of these new exams constitute an item bank of between 600 and 1,000 items. From those item banks, the exam specialists create versions of the exams to send out to the test centers. A version is a test form for a specific trade and has between 100 and 115 scored items. New versions for each of the 47 CSLB exams are sent to the test centers as often as every 2 months, depending on how many candidates take the exam. The exam specialists have created and sent 56 versions to PSI exam test centers in the last 3 months. Any board members have any comments? Does the public have any
I
comments?
have a question through the chair. I think we heard earlier that most of the complaints are for solar, about solar contractors. I'm just wondering if the data from the enforcement complaints is tracked to use and update the tests. I know they're new tests, but just wondering, is there a highlighted focus on that test or exam?
Yes, we do. We do work with enforcement if there's issues brought up regarding to trade. The thing is, a lot of the issues that they're having in enforcement are with requiring a higher than allowed down payment, or having them pay their bill in full before the work is complete, or not pulling permits. That's addressed on the law and business exam. We do update that exam every 5 years as well. And so we do address it in that exam, but the solar exam is more for the trade work. So it's addressed, it's just not necessarily addressed in the solar exam, the issues that they are having. Does that help?
Thank you. Any public comment? All right, moving on to applicant survey results. The annual applicant survey results start on page 123. CSLB has sent this survey to recently licensed contractors each month since February 2020. As you can see, the responses are mostly positive, with 82% indicating the licensing process was easy to understand and 74% indicating that the time frame was acceptable. In addition, 87% reported that they were treated courteously by CSLB's representatives. Do any board members have any comments? Does the public have any comments? All right, item 3, exam translation update. There's an update on exam translation beginning on page 133. As of August 1st, 2023, PSA exam began administering the law and business exam in Spanish at its test centers. 9 more trade exams will follow over the next few months, and I would like to invite Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon to comment about the translation project.
Thank you. So staff researched how often each trade exam received a request for Spanish translator over the last 20 years. The 9 most often requested trades were chosen for translation along with the law and business exam, and these trades are listed in your board packet. When candidates submit their application, they can let CSLB know if they would like to use a translator for their exam. Those who select Spanish and one of these trades will be assigned to take the trade exam and law and business exam using the translated versions at the test centers. Candidates who have applied for a different trade will still be able to request a translator for that trade, and then they'll take their law and business exam using the Spanish translated version. The benefit is it's going to speed up their scheduling time to take their exams because they don't have to wait for a translator room to be available.
Thank you, Chief. Staff is researching having various letters and other standard CSLB correspondence regarding licensure translated into Spanish as well. As of September 11th, the bond and fee letter has already been translated and will be programmed for use in the next few months. Do we have any board member comments? Do we have any public comment? All right, item 4, C49 tree and palm trade exam. On page 136, you can find information about the new C49 tree and palm trade. The CSLB created this new classification to ensure that licensees are tested on health and safety protocols in the tree service industry. The board approved development of the C49 classification at the April 2018 board meeting. The Office of Administrative Law approved the regulation on March 30th, 2022. To create this new C specialty license under CSLB's jurisdiction. The new C49 tree and palm trade licensees will be able to plant, maintain, and remove trees and palms. The most significant difference will be that the C49 classification will require a trade exam. The new classification is effective January 1st, 2024. Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon can speak briefly on this new trade.
So all C49 applicants will be required to take and pass the new C49 trade exam as well as a law and business exam to receive their license. After December 31st, 2023, applicants can no longer apply for the C61, the D49 tree service class. People who apply before this date will continue with their application. All D49 applications received on or after January 1, 2024 will be converted to C49 applications and take both the trade and the law and business exam.
Thank you. That concludes the licensing and testing update. Carol and I are available if the board has any questions. Are there any comments from the public? Back to you, Chair Love.
Thank you, Chair Guy. Next on the agenda is item H, Public Affairs. For that, we turn to our Public Affairs Committee Chair, Miguel Garza.
Thank you, Chair Love. I'm pleased to bring you the Public Affairs update today, which will start on page 140 of your pamphlet. The Public Affairs Office, or hereforth known as PAO, is responsible for media and industry licensing and consumer communications, as well as outreach. They provide a proactive public relations, responding to media inquiries, and develop and distribute publications and newsletters. They also conduct educational and outreach for consumers and contractors. PAO creates content for CSLB's social media channels and websites, including webcasts and videos. They conduct workshops, seminars for disaster survivors and contractors, and present speeches to service groups and organizations. Disaster response is a key part of CSLB's outreach efforts over the past few years. CSLB works to educate property and business owners as they are not harmed by unlicensed and/or unscrupulous contractors after a disaster. Between May 1st and June 31st of 2023, CSLB staff and I participated in 7 disaster recovery centers, or DRR centers, throughout California. A list of these DRCs are provided on page 140. In the area of video and digital service, PAO has focused on creating informative videos for consumers, licensees, and applicants. These videos cover topics such as Construction Safety Week and update on what to expect on test date, referring the process through examination and the administrative vendor PSI exams. The videos are shared on YouTube and other social medias and archived on the CSLB website. PAO has also prioritized translations in producing Spanish language consumer and industry videos. You can see a list of the live and recorded videos on page 142. On page 143, PAO has helped increase CSLB's following on social media by improving engagement with applicants, licensees, the news media, and other stakeholders. CSLB maintains an active presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and in LinkedIn. While platforms have shown growth. On page 147, PAO shows an updated subscriber list of more than 171,000. In my book, that's an influencer. This is a much larger number than reported in previous meetings, as it also includes the licensees and information servicers. This licensee information servicers was used in early August when PAO distributed the first Contractors newsletter in more than 2 years. The subscribers list also gets a CSLB's industry bulletins and press releases out to stakeholders. 2 industry bulletins have been issued since May. 7 newsletter releases have been issued in the same time period, including one in June about the National Association of State Contractor Agencies nationwide enforcement targeting unlicensed activities. PAO responded to 24 media inquiries between May 1st and July 31st, and the media coverage has focused on various topics, including sting operation results, solar scams, and complaint against contractors. On page 148, it shows the outreach events that CSLB has attended between May and July, including a senior scam stopper seminar that I presented in June with Assemblyman Alex Lee's office. The Public Affairs Office also writes and publishes contents for internal communications. As you would note on page 149, you'll see that the PAO has published 10 employee Intertran articles between May and July, highlighting employee and organizational accomplishments, providing access to forms, policies, reports, and other important information for CSLB staff, including the recent transition to Microsoft Teams calling. The Intertran is accessible to all CSLB employees around the state, and the first thing that they see when they open up their web browser in their work computers. Finally, on page 150, CSLB's Public Information Center has been improving waiting times for callers. Not noted in this package is that the wait times went further down in August, with wait times averaging less and/or around 7 minutes. This is an informational item only, and it requires no action from the board. Do any board members have any questions? Seeing and hearing none, are there any public comments? And seeing and hearing none, Chair Love, this concludes my report.
I'm on now. Thank you. Thank you for that report. At this time, we are going to take a break for lunch and then go into closed session. So thank you all for coming today, those of you who may have to leave, and those of you who stay, we will see you perhaps later. Thank you.